Hi, how are you all? I want to give a big thanks to the warm-up team, to Stephanie and Lynette and Bev. And then in the background, and you can't see Valerie, who was handling all the registrations today, and Jayesh, who makes all of this technical know-how possible for all of us. So it's one big team. And we even have Ty downstairs tonight, tuning in, listening in tonight. And we got two puppies at my feet for good energy. So the team is all here. I've been spending the time while you all are coming in, talking to my team in spirit, and I can definitely feel Sanaya here. So grateful for their guidance as we flow through this evening. What a story I have to share with you this evening. Many of you saw the email that went out about, my a little bout of temporary insanity. Did I have an attachment? What was going on? I'm going to tell that multifaceted story, which is going to take up most of the evening. And the reason I share it is because there are lessons inherent for all of us about consciousness, about who we are, about how to handle upsets and why they happen in the first place. So we will get to that. But first, I'll share a little bit of evidence of the greater reality and some other lessons learned along the way. Before we get started, why don't we start like we always do by coming together as a group. I earlier today was a guest speaker for the Shift Network's year-long Mediumship Academy, and I brought us together in an invocation, and the course organizer thanked me later for bringing our group energies together. She recognized the value of us coming to realize that we're not just all sitting separately in our homes. We are that, and we form one group consciousness, one field. And as you'll experience, if you haven't been part of these webinars before, it's really a very love-filled bubble that we're going to be in for the next 2 hours. Whether you're joining us live or watching later, you will feel it. So let's just begin tuning into that energy now by taking a nice, relaxing breath. Just close your eyes for a moment, shut out the outer world. Breathe in slowly and just let go all the stress of the day. Just let go any tension. Settle into this moment. Let your awareness settle into your heart. Ooh, I feel the collective release and the joy as our souls are rejoicing and coming together here to talk about our evolution, our purpose here, and to sit together in awareness that we're here to be the presence of love. So may that awareness become instilled in us so that it is indelibly imprinted in our conscious awareness. We are the presence of love. May we hear things tonight that help us to develop our consciousness and continue growing onward and upward towards what the soul already knows. We are the light. So grateful for this whole group coming together and for the upgrade in our energy that results. Thank you so much. All right, good deal. So let's see. I'm just going to start with a couple slides right off the bat, just to share something cool that happened last week. Let me share my screen. Some of you may be aware that Ty and I are just back from, where do you think? Looking at this screen. A little bit of tango going on in the streets of Buenos Aires. We spent 8 days in Argentina. And if you follow Facebook, you saw what happened while I was there. Ty unfortunately got nasty crud on the flight down there and spent the first 2 days in bed. I was heading to a pharmacy to get him a prescription. I turned the wrong way out of our hotel, thinking I was going the right way. And it did turn out to be the right way, because I'm walking along and this woman walking towards me on the streets of Buenos Aires stops in her tracks, stares at me and says, "Suzanne, what are you doing here in front of my apartment building?" And in this next picture, you see my new friend Paula, who lives right there where this picture was taken, 1 block from our hotel. And what she's doing in this photo is pointing at her Awakened Way app on her phone, which she looks at every day. So I was trying to put myself in her shoes and thinking, if I had somebody's app and I watched their webinars and their YouTube videos, and I was walking down the streets of Hilton Head or Bluffton here where I live, and I look up and they're walking right towards me, I could understand her surprise, but also her joy. We just absolutely celebrated that moment and got together for coffee later and it's just a moment I will treasure, because I thought I was going one place and ended up, I must have been guided like a little puppet just to that exact moment. And so I posted this on Facebook, and another woman wrote and said, "Oh my goodness, I live in Buenos Aires." And so I looked at our schedule and I said to Ty, "I want to meet with this woman for coffee." And I did. So here I am. The woman on the left is Rocio, and she brought along her friend Tamara. They are kindred spirits who talk about the kinds of things we're talking about this evening all the time, but not openly with others. And I think it's wonderful when we find people that we can share with, but I wish we didn't have to keep it in the closet. It's coming out more and more. But Rocio has had some lifelong issues, and she saw this get together as an absolute God thing, as did I, because as we talked, Spirit had some messages for her and really validated that the things that she's been worrying about really have no basis in reality, and that she really is coming to understand who she is as a soul. And it was just an absolutely beautiful moment. The whole purpose of us going to Argentina was so that I could take Ty for a bucket list trip that was to show him Iguazu Falls, which is a place that I visited 37 years ago. I think I must have been 1 year old, right? In the Navy. And it's one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. Literally, if you look up 7 natural wonders of the world, Iguazu is number 1 on the list I found online, and you can see why here. This is just one tiny portion of the waterfalls. Look, they're right behind us, and then off to the side, and then all the way around, much farther than you can fit in any picture. Again, this is just a small portion of the falls. We went over to the Brazilian side for this view, so we were in Brazil and Argentina on the same day. And that's just another view. Look how small the people are in the foreground. As Ty said, it makes Niagara Falls look like a puddle. So absolutely magnificent to be in that natural setting. So a wonderful vacation. I wish all of you will have a chance to get there someday, because the power of nature flowing like that is absolutely stunning. And to me, a spiritual experience. So, as we always do, I'm going to begin this session this evening with some evidence from my latest readings. One of them is just very brief. I share this always to back up the teaching that we are all part of something so much greater than our apparently separate selves, and that the spirit world is very real. We all know that. So again, I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything, but how about just celebrating what we know in our hearts to be true? I did a reading for a woman, and her father came through, and he showed me how much he loved fishing. And then I said, it must be fly fishing, because I can see him working at a little tiny desk making flies for the fishing rod. And I said, he's showing me he had special glasses, kind of like jeweler's glasses, that he would use to tie these flies. And absolutely, that was a beautiful memory that she had of her dad. And to validate how proud he was of his flies, and that's what came through, I said he was extremely proud of these fishing flies that he made. She sent me a picture, which I'm going to go back to sharing the screen to show you. Here we go. Come on. Oh, give me a second. We're going to be... My mother had a term, persnickety, when it doesn't cooperate with you here. Let me see if I can get it to work. Come on. There we go. This is a framed picture this woman has in her home, tied with pride by and her dad's name, all about how everybody knew how proud he was of his fishing flies. Look at them lined up there along the top of the frame. I just love when those in spirit bring through things that were favorite items in their life. That's what it's all about, right? To show, hey, it's really me. I'm really still here. And, you know, I am just so happy to know this. If you saw a post I put on Facebook in just the last hour, a dear, dear friend of ours, Charlie Cunis, crossed the veil 2 days ago. And We knew he'd been going downhill for years with Parkinson's disease, but we visited him just a few months ago. Every time we passed through Denver, Ty and I would make a special effort to visit Charlie. Please read Wolf's message if you haven't already. Maybe if you have it, go back and read the section where I met Charlie. He reached out to me and said, I'm a crusty old retired Army lieutenant colonel, and I'm on this spiritual path. And somebody gave me a copy of Messages of Hope, and I have some questions for you. So I said, well, we're going to be in your area. Let's get together. So I met him at a Starbucks in Longmont, Colorado. Boy, whatever year that whole Wolf's message unfolded, probably around 2012 or so. And he said, I have a gift for you. And my ears perked up because as I was heading south from Canada, having not even met Charlie, Spirit said, there is a gift for you in Colorado. And here's this man I've just met saying, I have a gift for you. And he pulls out a book called, well, it was a book by a woman named Little Grandmother. And as I read it, it answered all the mysteries that had been coming together around Wolf's visits all summer long. So Charlie was just this key figure in the mystery of Wolf's message. And we have remained friends ever since. And he called Ty, Captain Ty, he called him salty and we called him crusty, and he was just a character, but his body failed him. And I'm just thrilled that tonight I know he is free of that body and probably flying around visiting everybody right now. I haven't heard from him yet, but I'm sure I will. So it's just so comforting to know that while we mourn the physical lack here and we won't get to laugh face to face anymore, I know that he is just laughing with joy that it's all true, everything we talked about over the years. So back to another story. Met with a couple who was in a recent class of mine. They have a son, James, across the veil, and I was guided in the class. You're supposed to do a reading for them. So I sat with Jim and Lisa by Zoom, and I believe they're joining me this evening. So thank you for letting me honor James by sharing just a little bit of the validations from the reading. What surprised me, and for any of you who are practicing mediums, is that here I'm expecting to hear from their son because I knew I was guided to give them a reading, but he was not the first one to show up. I got pulled over here and I said, we have a father here. And it really felt like the husband's father, Jim's father. And I described his personality and I had to keep clearing my throat. I knew that that had to do with this man, and he showed himself to me in a uniform. And right away, they both said, that's Jim's dad. And he came through with a very important message for his son. I won't go into it because it's a little personal, but it showed right away why those in spirit know who needs to go first. They know what we need for our healing. And that healing message from Jim's dad was the perfect way to kick off a reading. So trust that your loved ones across the veil know what we need, even when we think we know what we want. They wanted to hear from their son, but here comes dad with a very important message. So then with that message out of the way, James showed up and I was able to describe his personality, which to me is key. Since I don't see the spirits, I need to feel them, capture their essence. And it's lovely when you have clients who can say, yeah, that's our son. That's our son. Everybody shares certain characteristics, but we all have very particular personalities that are recognizable when you can get very detailed as the spirits allow us to get to be. He showed me how well-mannered he was, how respectful of everyone, how interested and curious he was about things and how they work. He showed me that he was very much into physical fitness and enjoyed outdoorsy things. So let me just pull up a picture right now because they sent me some lovely pictures. Hopefully I'll be able to change the screen this time. Nope. Why does it do this? Hanging up on me again. All right, we'll come back out. Bear with me a second because this is going to happen several times this evening. We'll go like this. Boom. All right, so there is James enjoying outdoor activities, yet another fisherman, which I find very interesting in the juxtaposition here. Then James across the veil showed me a little tiny stone heart that I own, a little one. And I knew he meant that his mom had one. A lot of people find stone heart-shaped stones, and I'll see different sizes, but I knew specifically it was just like the one I had. And when his mom sent me the photo, it's even the same color as the one I have, one that she has, but she got it since James passed. And this is another example of those times when our loved ones show us they know what has happened since they passed and what kinds of things we've picked up in their memory. James mentioned his sister, and I wanted to make sure that she got a message from him. And it was lovely when he validated it was himself by talking about how his sister was very creative and artistic and had written a song about him. And indeed, she was into art and did a lot of painting and had written a song about James. He made a comment from across the veil about his mom making notes about everything, documenting everything. I can relate to that. But it was something that she absolutely validated and said that he was often upset with her when he was still here about the number of notes she kept as they were trying to help him with some struggles he was going through before he passed. And to that end, he also came through showing me himself walking with his hands in his pocket and his head kind of hanging down, a little bit of a depressed feel. I saw him from behind. Well, interestingly enough, his parents sent me this photo of him walking exactly like that. They used to encourage him to get out of the house. They had a really long driveway, and here you see him walking with his dad. And it's just it was a common image that mom had in her mind of her son, and interesting that he would show that to me that way. I mentioned earlier, I don't see the spirits. I see images like this. I just don't normally describe their face and their physical characteristics. So it's an interesting way spirit works through me. But there was no doubt in their mind that James was here. And afterwards, they shared a story that I want to share with all of you. It didn't come up in the reading, but it was so helpful to help his dad come to know that they had hope, that life is not the end. A death is not the end of life. Sorry. Here's James with a boat that he bought with his uncle's help way back, I think 2010, if I'm correct. And they fixed it up. They remodeled this boat, redid the cushions, bought a new outboard engine for it, and they named it Jimito, like Little Jim in Spanish. And they used it in Florida for years, but then it eventually was sold. So after James passed, a couple years after he passed, he just passed a couple years ago, I believe, the family went to the Bahamas. They took a family trip with the same uncle who had remodeled this boat with James. They were walking through the hotel. They had already checked in, and the uncle at some point felt inexplicably drawn to walk back through the registration area of the hotel. He walked down to the docks, couldn't explain why he turned around and was walking back the other way. He looked over, and there, tied up at the dock at the hotel where they were staying in the Abacos in the Bahamas, is Jimito. The exact, you can see up at the top, the name of the boat written on it, the exact boat that James and his uncle remodeled. I don't know how many miles away the Bahamas are from Florida, but this is absolutely a God wink for them to run into their son's boat, looking good, right there on display for all of them. So James's dad was a math teacher, very left brain, and they said that this story allowed him to absolutely know that there were forces at work trying to let him know that, as we say in the Awakened Way, we are part of one big web. And once you start noticing those things, it changes everything, doesn't it? So I wanted to read to you all this evening a message that I got from Sanaya that applies to all of us from my guides. How do you explain confluences of events that defy explanation? Physical objects, large or small, appear in places with timing that astounds you. You call this synchronicity. Perhaps you write it off as chance. Then why do you call it anything at all? For it points to a larger hand at work, a most excellent metaphor, for you are part of one body, all of you who get together and exclaim with excitement about these so-called coincidences. You, dear one, coincide as one being, and the one delights in surprising its selves over and over and over until they finally awaken and say, oh yes, I forgot for a while. Here I am. You are so very loved. And that's why we tell these stories. We know this. We know it's real. But if we ever stop delighting in the NOEs, the no other explanation moments, then it's time to hang it up, right? Because we are delighting ourselves by noticing these things. And the more we have get-togethers like this, the more you will connect the dots. That's part of why I'm going to tell this very lengthy story later this evening, because it's all about noticing how the universe conspires to get our attention when growth can happen. And if we just go through life blindly missing these things, we're missing out on growth opportunities. Some of the things I'll share with you this evening, I think some people might have missed, but you can actually become an expert at connecting the dots. And boy, does life flow then, and the synchronicities become the norm, which I'm sure a lot of you are starting to notice now. The synchronicities just flow more and more and more. So I love when people put in the chat, wow, and NOE, no other explanation, because we're all part of this celebration. Okay, let's see. So speaking of one mind, I had opportunity on this trip to Argentina to see how once you're connected with the mind of another, our individual minds, understand, are all swimming in as part of one greater shared mind, the mind of source. Call it consciousness, but you are that consciousness. So we're the little c within the big C of consciousness. This was driven home because while we were in Argentina, Lynette, yes, Lynette from the pregame show, was babysitting our two puppies in our house. So clearly we were thinking about her and the dogs a lot. We were exchanging a lot of texts back and forth and many photos of dogs, of course. But I didn't realize that when you're keeping that connection so clear, the one mind is really active without being aware of it. So I want to share with you the screenshot of some texts that happened between Lynette and me that even freaked us out. And we know how this works. We weren't always thinking about the dogs. I wasn't always thinking about home, but on one particular morning, we had a new dishwasher arriving, and it had to arrive while we were gone. So Lynette was able to be there and meet the repairman. We knew that the window when the repairman was going to be coming was sometime during the morning. We didn't really care too much about that. We were down in Argentina enjoying ourselves. We were sure that Lynette's got this. But suddenly in my mind pops the question, I wonder if Lynette knows where the circuit breaker is to turn off the power to the dishwasher. Why do I even care? I didn't realize that I cared because she had just had that thought. This is how the mind works. When you're connected and entangled, you tend to think your thoughts are your own until you see that they originated somewhere else. So let me see if I can share the screen again without screwing this up. Okay, give me a second. I'll bring up the screenshot. There's the Jimito. So there's Lynette's. I got to move all these things out of the way. The text for Lynette. Lynette reaches out to me, where's the electrical panel for the kitchen? And I tell her exactly where it is. And I said, I was thinking about writing that to you 5 minutes ago, no more than that. Is the repairman there, or were you just thinking about it and I'm connected to you and picked up on it? And she wrote back, nope, just thinking with the one mind. Freaky. Really, what an obscure oddball thing. They're not even here, meaning the repairman wasn't even there, and I picked up on that. And I said, that's crazy. We're so connected. And then I randomly said, those guys better understand there's a dog park waiting and get the job done. Meaning there is only one time per day we can take our little dogs to the dog park when they won't be assaulted by big dogs. And that's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I was joking, even though there were hours to go, those guys better get there. And she wrote, as you can see in capital letters, are you kidding me? Suzanne, That is exactly what I was thinking. And I wrote back, good grief. So we're just having a little bit of fun here with this, just to show you that your brilliant thoughts are not always your own, right? And this is how it works across the veil, too. You get thoughts about a loved one who has passed. Is it that you are thinking about them, or they happen to be thinking about you in that moment? I happen to know many times it's the latter. Once you're connected with a loved one, it doesn't matter if they have crossed the veil, if they're here, those minds are energy fields, always flowing, always connected, no matter how far apart. So if something causes you to think about a loved one across the veil, they will pick up on you thinking about them and naturally draw near. So I shared the little bit of fun there just to help you understand how it works. So let's use this as a launching pad to go into another topic I promised I would talk about before we get to the really long story. Give me a second. And that is about what I call field dynamics, to explain to you why you may experience certain feelings and they may not be necessarily your own. We pick up on people's energy all the time and may not recognize it. On a plane, maybe you are used to flying. Maybe you used to be afraid of flying, but you're not anymore. Why would you then feel discomfort when that plane is taking off or landing? Could it be, yes, it is, that you're picking up on the collective dis-ease, unease of those around you who are still afraid of flying? Here you are in this metal tube with a bunch of people, all these energy fields intermingling, and this feeling of just a little bit of not real comfort as the plane takes up and lands. You can pick up on that. I became very aware of the field dynamics just recently at a meeting at a boating club that we belong to, where they brought in a guest speaker. Well, the guest speaker was the local sheriff. Had nothing to do with boating. I think they were short of guest speakers. So they brought in the sheriff to talk to all of us. He gave his talk and we got to ask questions. It was nearing the end of the hour together. And this one woman raises her hand and she said, well, I wasn't going to talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Right away, you know this is a problem. Well, I don't know if she had been drinking too much or if there was something just not quite right with her, but she went on and on and on and on and on to the point where everybody started to squirm. You've been there, right? Where you have somebody that will not be quiet, but this was bad. And I sat there wishing the sheriff would give her the hook, wishing the host of the meeting would give her the hook, and nobody did. And the distress that I was feeling grew and grew and grew until it was just so bad that I was able to shift to soul awareness and say, wait a minute, why am I so uncomfortable? This is a group dynamic thing. We're all trained, right? Not to say anything, not to embarrass anybody. The part of me inside the Navy commander wanted to stand up and take charge and say, excuse me, this is not the time to talk about that. But she kept going on. And then it became for me a study in field dynamics, watching everybody in the room as their discomfort grew because everybody was embarrassed for this woman and for the sheriff. And I just thought if we could all just realize that these energy fields are always interacting like this and see what happens when we think that's our discomfort. But when you realize you can always disconnect from that, do like we say, shift to the balcony and say, pass the popcorn, right? It then becomes interesting instead of uncomfortable. So what do you do in situations like that? You can find phrases like, isn't that interesting? Or not my discomfort. Same thing happens if you're like in a road rage situation with somebody, somebody that you're with might get angry and you can just say, wait, not my anger, but you'll flare up because all of your fields are connected. You pick up on the anger of the person in the next car and next thing you know, things escalate. So I bring this up just to help you become more aware of how we can be affected by the energy fields all around us because they're all part of one collective field. And we're going to be seeing more and more and more of this as we approach Election Day in the United States, and as we get more collective fields interacting with each other. It's going to be so important, no matter what happens around the world with various conflicts happening, to be able to step back, say, isn't that interesting, and take that a neutral point of view so that you're not bowled over by the energy waves that are not your individual waves. That way you can tune into insights and guidance when most needed. All right. Okay. Let's see. So I did ask for help the next day after that meeting at the club. I asked my guides for guidance on all of this because it was so uncomfortable. And I thought you might be interested in the conversation. I wrote it down verbatim. I call Source Joy. So I said, Joy, I realize I'm being tossed about too much by the waves in the eddies most close to me. That's what I call our energy fields, like whirlpools in the sea of consciousness. And Joy said, now you understand. It is wholeness that will keep you afloat. I said, show me how, please. Why does it take so much effort? I hope that you're noticing how you can have this kind of conversation with Source. Go into meditation and ask these specific questions. See what you hear in response. You may think at first you're making it up, but is it helpful? Is it insightful? Is it something you thought about yourself? Then keep doing it, because this kind of guidance for me has been so helpful. So I asked, why does it take so much effort? And Joyce said, for you are forgetting to go to the still center. Once caught up in the maelstrom, the forces are quite strong. I said, can I save myself at any point? Yes, the center is always present. Put two hands on the heart when possible, and most definitely a smile. Try that now while you're watching. It is just this instant feeling of peace. I can see my team and a lot of you doing that. It feels so good. And when you hold it there for at least 20 seconds, you get the oxytocin flowing in your system. But I love the fact that Joy said, put a little smile on your face. Joy says, you have no idea how the facial muscles pulled downward pull the rest of you downward. That's huge. Yes, the most gentle of smiles will bring you to, isn't that interesting? And also to self-love, where you will not want to harm the self by ingesting anything that is harmful. Isn't that cool? With awareness, you suddenly realize you're only hurting yourself by allowing these waves to wash over you. This is a loving thing to do, to just take a little breather, give a little smile, step back, say, isn't that interesting? So I said, I would like to be balanced, loving, and kind. And Joy said, then remain aware. So this awakened way is a lot of work, isn't it? It's not easy, but the payoffs are phenomenal. So I said, I'm asking for your help in maintaining awareness. Joy said, it will help greatly if you remain alert to the initial signals. Okay. I might have skipped a little part. Oh, I did. I have to tell you something else that led up to that. This was such an interesting field dynamics example for me. Right shortly after that incident I shared with you, we took a group of guests out on our boat for the day. They arrived at 11 a.m. They were barely aboard when they started drinking wine. Now, Ty and I never drink on our boat if we're going to be getting underway. So we did not partake at all. But I found it very interesting to watch our company enjoy themselves, wine or not. But the more wine they drank, I started to want wine. And I don't drink in the middle of the day. And I started to notice the field dynamics at work here, getting caught up in their field energy. So by the time we got back into port and the boat was all secured, I was like, give me a glass of wine. I got totally swept up in this. And then because I had the wine, then I overate with sweets and snacks that I didn't want to have. So I brought that into my discussion with Sanaya, with Joy, the next day. How interesting it was that just being around others, engaging in behavior that I even knew was not the norm for me, you become part of that group dynamic. So just awareness keeps you from behaviors you may not want. So that's when I said, can I save myself at any point? So when Joy says it will help greatly if you remain alert to the initial signals, I said, such as seeing others drinking. And Joy said, yes, as their inhibitions lower, you will get caught up in that. And I said, and this is important for all of us, but I don't want to be in resistance mode. Please show me another way. When you resist what's going on, when you deny what's going on around you, that's like putting up an energetic wall. And Joy said the obvious answer, flow, dear one. And I said, but flowing, you can also get caught up in the waves. And Joy again said, sink into the space at the center of your wholeness and then simply flow as the wholeness, which is not a self-protecting tiny center in the middle of the storm, but transcends the storm, transcends all minor and major eddies and simply is, observing and allowing. And I said, that feels very peaceful. Joy says, you will find it is. I am the wholeness. This is life will serve you well as a mantra. You will find all falling quite easily into place with this truthful phrase. So trust me, I don't have any problem with anybody drinking, but it's when you end up doing things you don't want to do. I would have been very happy with just one glass, but that led to all kinds of chocolate eating and cookie eating and things that I didn't want. So I said, then I can feel myself sliding very easily into slow, deep breathing with this phrase, I am the wholeness, this is life. And Sanaya said, yes, like being the ocean, while the waves do what waves do around you, just center at your center where just being is anchored. So a little bit of depth here, but hopefully helpful to you. I love that Spirit is always just giving us tools for learning not to get swamped by the waves. Okay, I just realized I've gone all this time without doing any Q&As, so we'll take a break to answer some questions, and then I will get into the main issue of the evening.
All right. Okay, so I have one. It's short and sweet, but I think a lot of people probably have this, as so many of us have lost loved ones. This is from Lorna. Do the spirits in the afterlife ever wish they could be back here living with those they loved?
I'm checking with Sanaya. I can answer as Suzanne from all those that I've connected with and those who've had near-death experiences, that being across the veil, we're quite content with the experience we have there. But let's ask Spirit what they have to say about that. They say that there is, if you could understand simply, there is the awareness that all is well. It takes away the kind of desire that humans have. There's an awareness that there would be great pleasure in being back with loved ones, but it's not a need and a desire like we have in human form, because it's overcome by the awareness that where we are is just right. There's a trust in the process. So yes, they understand that it would be lovely to be back with us, but they also trust the process and where they are, resting in what is, much more so than we do when we're here in the body. I hope that makes sense.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Steph, go ahead and ask another one. Stephanie's taken over the monthly connection responsibility from Bev, so I can still see Bev, but I love that we have.
Yes, and Bev is an awesome teacher. Okay, here's another one. I think that is pretty very interesting. What does Sanaya say about consulting well-respected intuitives to help people who are needing guidance in their lives? For example, intuitives that, use astrology, communicate with loved ones, spirit guides, past lives to help us with our life's purpose and or deal with our grief.
Yeah. Sanaya says we are given others in relationship for a reason, that each of us is given gifts to share liberally with each other and to validate what our own soul already knows. This is what's really important. Often when we go to psychics with questions, when we consult astrologers, we already know the answer, but it's so wonderful to have validation from somebody who we feel has a different perspective. And indeed, they do. What I'm hearing right now is a caution, however, that when you consult others, this is always an opportunity to use your own tools of discernment and to trust that more than any other. So that if somebody in a position of guidance tells you something that causes your gut to clench, and it's not from fear, but from a knowing that that just doesn't feel right, a non-fear filled, I don't know about that, then trust your own body's wisdom first and foremost. So by all means, use these beautiful healers and helpers who are given to us, but use them to help you trust yourself. Love that. Okay,
That's wonderful. Great add-on. Thank you, Suzanne.
how about one more?
All right. All right. Some NDEers say that time doesn't exist in the non-physical, while others say time exists, but time is different there. What is time like in the non-physical, or can you explain that aspect of the non-physical experience?
We'll do our best, but for those of you who might be new to the term, NDEers are near-death experiencers. So people whose bodies physically died and came back to tell us about the experiences they had. The best way to explain what time is like is an experience that we're all very familiar with. It's like time is in your dreams. You're aware of events occurring, but there doesn't seem to be any time. You're simply present. You simply think of something, and the next thing you know, you're having that experience. In a dream, you think about Paris and you're in Paris, and suddenly things have strange juxtaposition. It's the same way across the veil, which is not a place, but a state of consciousness. So time does not unfold linearly like it does here. It simply is. Hope that helps.
Awesome.
Right. Thank you, Stephanie. All righty. So we're going to talk this evening about evil spirits, attachments, dense energy forms in a very easy, gentle way. I love that I can even say the word evil spirits without feeling this collective angst. That nobody reacted to that. So that was really good. So I love that we're coming at this with a feeling of trust. I'm going to put myself on report this evening for some behavior that I'm not proud of, but I understand where it came from. I'm glad I can see my team and Lynette laughing at me because she was there for part of this and she knows what's coming. But Bev and Stephanie have not heard this story yet. But at the time, I didn't realize there was a huge lesson in it for me. And now I see it, but I also see that there are lessons in it for all of us. So when we always pray, may my lessons be as painless as possible, I share this with all of you, not necessarily that you won't go through your own emotional, mental challenges, but that you'll recognize what's happening if it happens to you and how to deal with it. That's the point, because we don't actually want to be free of challenges. Boy, do we grow from them. And this was a huge learning opportunity for me with all kinds of spiritual insights. And this is going to go on for probably an hour. We're going to finish with a guided exercise, an experience for all of you so that you will have an opportunity to identify a trigger in you that you might want to clear out before it becomes your own temporary insanity. How does that sound? So stick with me here. So in the last month, I went out of town on my own, spent 2 nights at someone's house. I had never been there before, but I was a guest in their house. And the energy was very different for me, as it is anytime when we go to a hotel or somebody else's house. It's not our same energy. But I had an opportunity to have conversations with the person who lived in that house and found their energy to be quite different from my own. There was a lot of discussion about conspiracy theories and about people trying to take over and change systems. And it was a conversation at a level that I wasn't very comfortable about. And I was very aware of being on edge and guarded the whole time I was there, not to mention sleeping in this person's guest room. It didn't feel creepy to me. It was just uncomfortable, and I was aware of that. So I remember the whole time I was there, when I would go into meditation, I felt disconnected from my team Sanaya. I hope that all of you can get to the point when your connection with your spirit guide and guides and loved ones across the veil is such a part of your life that when that connection is not as clear as normal, you're aware of it, because I was definitely aware of feeling disconnected. So I was very happy to get back home to my pack, to Ty and the 2 dogs. And I had just gotten home that afternoon, gone for 2.5 days. And Ty and I were sitting at the dinner table, having a nice chat, catching up. And we had a glass of wine with dinner, and I had a second glass. So that's all I'd had, 2 glasses of wine. But sometimes with me, 2 glasses is one too many. I get a little bit more sensitive than most because of my energy. But I know that the alcohol for me played into my reaction to what happened next. But it wasn't as if I were drunk. I'd had 2 glasses of wine. So we started talking about politics, the news, just catching up on the news. That was all it was. But all of a sudden, I was very surprised when Ty brought up the one topic I had specifically said, let's not ever talk about that again. And he had said, okay, at the time. It was just one taboo topic between the 2 of us, and he brought it up and started talking about it at the table. And as he did, the look on his face became what I interpreted as very angry, and it triggered me. So this is why I set this whole conversation up, because I had just spent 2.5 days in a prickly situation, disconnected from my guides, and now I have a little bit of alcohol in me, and this, what I perceived as an angry face on Ty's face, talking about a taboo subject, and I lost it. And the reason I knew I lost it, 2 things happened right away. I did something incredibly childish. I mimicked back at him the look he was giving me. I said, if you could see what you look like to me right now, and then made all these grotesque faces, just like a child. Well, we always hold our dogs on our lap after dinner. And Ty said, stop, look at poor Rusty, he's shaking. I felt terrible because the energy between us was so bad. Our poor little dog was affected by it. I had never seen that happen to Rusty before. And I have now lost it. And I said, but you don't understand. When you look like that, that's how I feel on the inside. Now, I know that Ty is watching this evening. He was there for all of this. This is no surprise. I want to let him off the hook right away to let all of you know this was all a lesson for me. Okay, this is something we will resolve this later, but you will see how this whole thing was a spirit setup, but I didn't realize it at the time. I'm trying to help all of you find greater awareness than I had in the moment. But looking back, I see how I had to go through this triggering moment. So here's our dog shaking. I've lost it. And we just said, forget it. So we get up from the table. Let's take the dogs outside to do their thing. Well, we get outside and I don't even know what was said, but it just spiraled. The field dynamics were terrible. It just escalated to the point where I turned over the one dog's leash to Ty, gave him both the dogs, and I went flying back into the house. Here's something I asked Lynette this morning. I said, should I really tell everybody what really happened? And I said, I've always been honest with everybody. And this is part of the story. So I'm going to tell you what really happened. I turned around to Ty in this fit of rage and looked at him and shouted across the yard, "You need to hide the guns." And I meant it. And I could tell him looking at me askance. And I meant not because you're in danger, because I'm endangering myself. I just wanted off the planet. The rage that overcame me. And there was no reason that I could see for that. I want to bring up a slide real quick, just to lighten things up a little bit here real quick. Where are we? Give me a sec. So it should not come as any surprise that we have some guns in the house. This is a picture of the commander here, way back when. Do you see the circle around those medals there, those ribbons? That's the pistol shooting ribbon and the rifle shooting ribbon. The E means expert. Somehow I qualified as an expert pistol shooter and an expert rifle shooter. So it's just part of my background, right? I don't play with guns. We just have a few in the house, just like people in the West grow up with them. So that's part of our culture, but we have them in the bedstand, in the bedroom. So for me to shout at him, "You need to hide the guns," I was clearly out of my mind. I went upstairs out of self-preservation to my meditation room. And I said to my guides, "You need to help me here. What is going on?" I literally felt as if there was some spirit taking over me. This is the attachment part of all of this that I was talking about. And yet there was no basis for that. But I also couldn't help but think there's a song called with lyrics about somebody who had a little bit to drink and took their own life. And I thought about how many spirits I have brought through who took their own life and their loved ones just couldn't explain it in a moment of passion. And I got to wondering about how many of us get knocked off balance by very strong energies and don't understand what happened. And I was given the personal experience of going from what I thought was a perfectly sane person, but you can see this cascade of events. So I wondered, did I pick up an attachment from the person I was with over the weekend? Did I pick up an evil spirit in their house? And I specifically asked my guides for guidance on this, and I did not get an answer, but through just clearing my chakras, taking some deep breaths, I calmed down enough that I went back downstairs and I said to Ty, "It's safe now. You can deal with me. I'm sorry." This is where it gets, actually, I hope Ty can laugh at this. I hope all of you can laugh at this, because it actually, it kind of shocked me what happened next. I went downstairs. I thought all is well, so I'm trying to be pleasant. I apologize for my behavior. I said 5 little comments conversationally to Ty, and he did not respond at all. He ignored me, which was probably a safe thing to do. But instead, my reaction was something I'm not proud of. I turned to him and I said, "So now you're just being an asshole." And he looked at me and he said, "What did you just say?" Because you have to understand, we've known each other for 30 years, and neither one of us has ever called the other anything negative. Not "you're a jerk," you're an idiot. nothing in 30 years. So I can imagine how that affected him. And for it to come out of my mouth, now I knew something was affecting me. And I tried to calm myself down, but I said, I have to go back upstairs. So I went back up to my meditation room, and now I'm meditating and asking. And I said, please help me. I am not myself. And I was literally frightened. And I thought, has some being attached it to me? Please take it away. As I asked for help, I was shown a geometric shape. I'll show you a slide of it later because I found it physically in this world, shown a geographic shape I'd never seen before. And I was given the name of a spiritual teacher whose books I had read, but don't know too well. Her name is Barbara Hand Clow. She writes some pretty esoteric books. And my guides in that moment were able to get through to me and say, look into her work. And then they reminded me about a workshop that I have on my website called Shedding Your Skin, about a time when a certain summer when I encountered 7 snakes in one summer, and I was shown that there was some energy affecting my field, and that all of us get patterns of dense energy in our fields that can get gunked up. And if we can see these energy fields like little worms, nothing more than that, but something in our system that doesn't belong there, we can clear that out. And I was shown that what I was experiencing were basically akin to worms in my energy field. Notice how we live our lives through stories. Other people might have said, you have a dark entity in you. Other people might have said, it's the devil. In this case, my guides just called it worms. What was it? It was dense energy that was coming to the surface that needed to be noticed so it could finally be released. But I did not know that at the time, and I didn't know what needed to be released. Hopefully you're all feeling nice and comfortable, you're learning. Stay with me because I discovered what needed to be released, and good news, it's been completely released. But can you see how when this is something that is so lodged in you, and I found out mine was in there from my very earliest days, my whole life, something that has been building up, but I did not allow to be released for over 60 years, finally got triggered by my, at the physical level, unwitting husband as the one that triggered it, allowing it to be released. But if you don't have tools, we can think that this is something attacking us, when in fact, we're bringing to ourselves exactly what we need so it can finally be released and healed. But can you see the discomfort and the distress that I underwent in the meantime? I'm just grateful that with awareness, I so shocked myself with my words and behavior that I knew where to go for help. And that was within, to source. So the next, I cleared it pretty well. I texted Ty, I'm coming down now, it's safe. And he joked that he had hidden the guns, but he wasn't joking. He really did hide them, which was probably wise on his part, but that was past now. So the next morning I woke up and feeling better, I knew I still needed to find out what that was all about. So before I sat down to meditate, I texted my dear friend Annie Bond, an energy healer who I've talked about many times, and I hope that you will all learn from Annie Bond. She's wonderful. She has her own website. And I said, Annie, do you believe in attachments? And if so, are you able to clear them? She texted back and she said, I do, but not as actual beings, as energetic forces. And it's exactly what I was just sharing with you. And she said, I can help you clear that. I'm a big believer in perfect setup with that question Stephanie asked. It's why we have other intuitives and other healers, to turn to others to help amplify what we can do for ourselves. She said, I will get to that as soon as I can. Annie said, I have to help myself first. I need to clear my own energy field. I love that. We all have to work on ourselves first, kind of like on the airplane, right? Cracked me up flying to Argentina. Twice I heard the flight attendant say, if you're going to wear an oxygen mask and you have another mask on, you have to take that one off first. Hello. So always help yourself first. So meanwhile, I know I'm feeling good because I know Annie's going to look at what may have happened, but I'm going to still ask my guides for more help. So I went into meditation. I felt Sanaya step in, and I got the Daily Way message, which I'll share with you now. Sanaya's message was, I just don't feel like myself, you might say, or that's not me. And you may be right. The larger self with a capital S can play infinite roles. What you call the self is but one of these that you identify with the body, with your appearance and your character traits. But selves at the deepest level are swirling patterns of energy information that carry a certain feeling and are autonomous in their ability to create and make decisions. Should you have a run-in with a field of energy information that feels antagonistic to what you know as your own loving self and begin swirling about together in the sea of all that is, you will notice a difference. Return to ground zero, pure being. Assert your sovereignty. Remember that phrase, assert your sovereignty, and state, I am the light. Ask for divine assistance to cleanse the aura of all that is not of the light and trust that healing is taking place. You are so very loved. That asserting your sovereignty is the law of personal responsibility. It's a spiritual law that I've taught in my classes for years, and it is the most powerful tool you have, realizing that all consciousness must obey when you say, I am the light, any darkness must leave. That is asserting your sovereignty. So I was again shown this colorful geometric image. I'll bring it up later and show it to you. I don't want to fumble with the slides right now, that I couldn't identify. And so after meditation, I went online and I searched for this woman, this teacher, Barbara Hand Clow. Notice this is someone I haven't thought about in years. I have some of her books in my library, but to have spirit bring up exactly what we need is the perfect example of the value of you developing an ongoing relationship with your guides, so that when you ask questions, they're able to literally put into your mind, into your awareness, exactly who and what can help you. And you learn to trust and know that the help you want really is within you. So I went online and found an interview on Gaia, the online network of spiritual shows, with the host of Gaia and Barbara Hand Clow. And that exact geometric symbol was the screensaver for that video. That's how I knew, watch this one. And what she said in there addressed exactly what I had been going through. Imagine how validating it was to have her in this short 40-minute video talk about, ready? Asserting your sovereignty. The exact words that Sanaya used in the message. Her teaching was, and we're talking about attachments and evil spirits here tonight, higher energies of upper dimensions are coming to us all the time. But if we are gunked up, especially with alcohol or drugs, or always immersed in less than positive environments, the higher energies must filter through the emotional realms. Many people call this 3D, and the emotional realm all around us, the shared collective consciousness where all emotions reside, is called 4D. She stated in this interview, we are always being influenced, but we are sovereign in this realm, which is why Sanaya said, assert your sovereignty. We give names to the fields of dense energies. She even said this. We call them attachments, the devil, evil spirits. They are fields of influence experienced as strong feelings. And that is exactly what knocks us off balance. They're not people or beings, they're strong feelings. But we give them names, we give them stories, and they literally take on a life of their own. Sovereignty means that we get to choose how we react to any situation. She stated, most people try to ignore these emotional impulses of light and dark. Quote, if we resist or deny the emotional level of reality, we can go a little crazy. How's that for being led to just what we needed to hear, or what I needed to hear? Wholeness means accepting the dark and the light. We attract certain situations so we can process them. I love that my guides use books and videos as a shortcut to the teaching. They give me beautiful messages, but to be guided unerringly with that geographic symbol and the words to validate this is the answer you're looking for. I'm hoping that this is useful to all of you. So meanwhile, I could tell exactly when Annie Bond did her healing. She texted me and said, I just had a look at your energy field. Oh boy, are you ready for this? You had what I visualized as a couple of worms in you. I couldn't help but laugh. It was the exact same image that Sanaya showed me. I hope this gives you some understanding, because we know at a human level, we don't have worms in our field, but we also don't have devils in our field. These are names and labels that we give to dense energy that's moving around in our field, causing emotional upset, emotions that just need to be reconciled and brought to the light. So she said she cleared them out. She felt very much that they had been activated by being in that prickly environment for a couple of days, and then the whole storm of events that happened the night before. But she said once she cleared it out, she said the most beautiful ray of unconditional love came to fill that space that had been voided, but that she felt resistance in me, most likely from me beating myself up over how I treated Ty the night before. I found that very, very interesting. So hopefully there's a lesson in you for that as well. Let's see. So I'm definitely feeling better now, but I still couldn't understand why the whole situation was attracted to me. So what do you do, everybody? You ask specific questions of your guides. And I knew that some of my best guidance comes to me in the middle of the night, even if it's going to disturb my sleep. I'll say to the guides, wake me up at 3 a.m. if you can get the guidance I need through to me. And that is exactly what happened. Let's see. But we won't get there yet because there's more to this story. A little bit of the magic to show that we are never alone. I'm going to have to bring the slides up in a minute here. Before I came out of that meditation, Spirit said, pull a tarot card to know how to deal with the situation you were in over the weekend in that prickly house. So I pulled a tarot card and I pulled the 6 of Swords. Let me pull this up. Okay, give me a sec here. Okay. There's the geometric figure that I saw. So you can see it's very unusual. And to see this exact one on the Gaia screen was really stunning. When I was told pull the tarot card, this is the one I pulled, the 6 of Swords. And the advice was when the 6 of Swords is drawn, it's telling you that sometimes the best move you can make is to walk away from a situation. So I had been wondering whether to give credence to the conversations I'd been having with my host about conspiracy theories and people taking over our minds and such. And I was being told by this, walk away. So the message from Sanaya was, when something does not feel right, walk away. Do not run. That would allow fear to be in control. You control your emotions once you notice them. By walking when you sense discomfort or feel ill at ease, you're able to keep your finger on the pulse of your emotions, and pulse they will, moment by moment, as you step, pause, discern, and choose your next step. This is how to get through life, one breath, feeling, choice, and step at a time. And this is how you grow with lessons that are as painless as possible. So I'm finishing this meditation where I'm getting guidance from Sanaya with answers like this, and I take out my ear pods, and I'm snagged by the fact that the little case they come in is a little dirty. And I'll often just clean it with my fingers, but I suddenly had the feeling, I'm going to come out of screen share for a second. Give your ear pod case a thorough cleaning. This is one of those cases of not realizing our thoughts are not our own. Remember what we talked about earlier this evening. Here I am, the little puppet on the string, not realizing that cleaning my ear pod case is going to lead to a huge wow. So I take the ear pod case downstairs, go into the bathroom, get out a Q-tip, I'm cleaning it, and it's just not good enough because in the crack is dirt that suddenly I need to clean out. I am not neurotic about my earpod case. I have never cleared the little crack in the earpod case, ever. But this is all unfolding at the same time. So I think, well, I need a piece of cardstock to get in there. That'll help, a thick piece of paper. And I know where I can get that, in my nightstand. So I walk over to my nightstand, and I notice on the top are a bunch of little spiral notebooks. And I had a bunch of leftover notebooks from Unity Village when I led a retreat there. And there's, I see Bev nodding. She knows those notebooks. We all have them lying around our house. And they have really thick cardstock in the front of them. And I thought that's going to be perfect for cleaning out my earpod case. So I just ripped off a piece of the cardstock, and I looked down at it and I said, wait, that's not Unity Village notebook. What is this page? Are you ready? I'm going to bring the screen share up again. You have to see what was on the cardstock that came up, because I had to clear my earbuds at that moment. Here we come. Give me a second. It's worth the drum roll and the suspense here. This page, intentional meditation, releasing specific unwanted attachments. On the exact morning when I'm worried about releasing attachments, I looked at this and I said, what is this? And why is it in my nightstand? And why was it right on top of my nightstand? The reason it was on top of my nightstand is because Ty had removed the gun that was on top of it. I don't know how that book even got in the top of my nightstand, but now it's right on top in there, open to this page. And I had never read this booklet. It turns out it's a booklet given to me by a wonderful healer named Judy Hancock, the sister of Irene Vuvalides, my neighbor and friend from Helping Parents Heal. And it's open to this exact page. Very important to look at what it says here, that Judy's understanding of attachments are just when our energy is magnetized to someone else's energy field. That these are not evil spirits. We're simply attracted to what we need. And you can see in the picture here, this very easy technique for clearing magnetized energy fields. She says that there's an energy point on the sides of the hand attached to the small intestine meridian in energy medicine. And that just by pressing these together and offering that energy up to spirit, or simply tapping your hands together, that is a very effective way to clear energy. I believe there's something to this in that as I looked into the concept of attachments, many people talk about clapping your hands together to clear away energy that's unwanted, and it has the same effect there. But I hope you can understand how shocked I was to be looking for cardstock to clear my earbuds case and come to exactly the page that I needed to validate everything that I was going through. Okay, so connecting the dots and seeing how spirit is guiding all of this. Got through the day with no problem, but as I said, went to bed then the next night. And here's what I suggest you do when you have an issue and you're willing to let spirit awaken you with answers. Ask a very specific question. So my question when I went to bed, and I even wrote it down on a notepad at the side of the bed, what in me attracted that dark energy? Awaken me if that will help. So now I'm in awareness that there was something in me that needed to be healed, but I didn't know what it was. Guess what time I woke up? 3 a.m., of course. So I used at that time a very useful tool that I'm going to share with you now. If you're not already doing this, it's really super with your guides. If they're not just talking to you right off the bat, in your mind's eye, hold out your hand and say, put in my hand an image of something that will hold meaning for this issue. So lying there in bed in the dark, awaken. I can tell my guides have a bunch of information for me, but I said, put something in my hand that's useful. And I was very surprised by what showed up, which is always a sign that this is coming from spirit. They put in my hand the image of a gargoyle. That's why we had a gargoyle in the email that went out about tonight. I had no idea why they were showing me a gargoyle, but I knew that within minutes I was going to be at my computer at 3:15 in the morning Googling gargoyles, and that there would be great meaning in that for me. So meanwhile, I asked the question again, tell me what in me attracted this energy that knocked me so off balance. And I suddenly saw the yin yang symbol. I have a slide of it here. Should I bring it up? Sure. Because it's very helpful to have this visual as we're looking at this. The yin yang symbol is such a perfect example of how we are constantly involved in a dance of dark and light. Notice what's most important here is the two dots of different color within both sides there. I sensed that my positive attitude when talking with the host at the home where I stayed, who had a very negative attitude, were the two energies dancing. But within the positive, shown here by the white, there's this little dark circle. And within the dark circle, there's this little white circle. So this symbol really shows us that there's always something within us that's the opposite of what we think we are. And suddenly I was just drawn like a magnet, think of magnetized, to that little black circle. And I knew that there was something in me, this little dark spot of energy that had magnetized to me exactly what I needed, that it wasn't something to be afraid of, just an opportunity to bring in the light. In other words, we already have everything within us that we need to be healed. Okay. So as I'm lying there, I hadn't yet gotten up. By the way, these are gargoyles. Do they look frightening enough? I suddenly saw an image that I had recently seen. Spirit put in my mind's eye this bowl of lemons. I was given this exact image lying in the guest room where I was visiting, where I was knocked off balance. It came to mind because later when I was walking around that house, I saw an exact bowl of lemons like I had been shown. So when it popped into my awareness again, I started to get a feeling that I was shown that bowl of lemons then because Spirit knew what was coming for me. This whole thing was orchestrated for my healing. And I asked, what is the meaning of the bowl of lemons? And heard, when you are given lemons, make lemonade. Surely you've heard that phrase before. But I knew that there was a spiritual meaning for it this time. Just the day before, I had used my new air fryer to make these caramelized oranges, which, just like making lemonade, required sprinkling the top of them with sugar. And I suddenly understood the message here. I had gone to bed asking, what in me attracted that dark energy? And I was shown, this is going to sound corny, but it was absolutely what happened. Everything went sour when Ty made an angry face. It wasn't that the topic he was discussing was taboo. It was the look on his face, the sour way I interpreted that he looked. This is the start of what needed to be healed in me, and it'll be very clear to all of you soon. I hope you're able to translate this to what in you triggers you. Could there be that little dark energy in you that is magnetizing to you things that you fear, things that you might have called evil spirits or dark energy, when it's really just something waiting to have a little bit of light brought to it, a little bit of sweetness added to what is sour. So Spirit's then showing, where there's darkness, let there be light. For you, when faced with a sour face, put sugar on it. So all along, I can tell you over and over, I've complained about when he looks angry, and yet other people can get angry around me and it doesn't trigger me. I tried to get him to change how he was without seeing this was an opportunity for me to bring in the light instead of resisting it. So now I feel almost propelled to get out of the bed and look up what the heck is a gargoyle and why is it coming up? Well, you saw the picture. Gargoyles are all about, are you ready? Grotesque faces, screwed up faces, scary faces. This is the whole issue for me, and I didn't realize it. Gargoyles were put on churches, I learned at 3 a.m. on Google. They're actually water spouts to protect the walls, to protect the hard walls erected, to divert the flow. Grotesque faces so that the parishioners are scared of what's outside and seek refuge inside the church. All of these scary faces got me to seek refuge by going within. Interesting double meaning here, right? So turns out this was a major life lesson for me, because for the first time ever, I made the connection between Ty's angry face triggering me and something that my sister and I, for our entire lives, called my mother's look. My mother would give us the look, and I would have a meltdown, but I wasn't allowed to melt down. We were not allowed to show emotions as kids. We were not allowed to get angry. And yet one of the looks from my mother, and I would start to cry. And then I would get the, why are you crying thing. So all this, everything I've been sharing with you this evening was a setup from Spirit. Remember how I said, why are you bringing up the one topic I asked you not to talk about right now, when I was in what I didn't realize was a vulnerable state? Can you see how we're connecting all of these dots here? When you see how that attachment paper just happens to show up in my drawer, and all of the being off balance is now allowing this pocket of dense energy, which Annie Bond called a worm, which of course is not a worm, and it's not an evil spirit, yet it felt so intense. It was like an actual, you could turn it into a story. Something's trying to get me. Can you see how we twist strong energies that are just trying to be released? All right. And all of this because I had learned to ask the guides and to deliberately be shown what is it that is trying to be healed here. I hope that this is proving helpful to you, even if it's a little uncomfortable for me. So the Spirit says, don't throw out the lemons, right? Bring in more light, bring in the sweetness. I knew in that moment, I knew it. Ty can give me any face he wants from now on, and it won't trigger me. It was never about him, never about his faces. It was a setup. At the soul level, Ty was playing his role to the hilt without knowing it. So just like the gargoyles were about reconciling the scary stuff on the outside with the peace on the inside, that's what the yin yang symbol is about. That's what this whole dance we're involved in here is about. Realizing that the pain leads to light and freedom. So I'm here to tell you, spirit guides will put therapists out of business if you remember to ask and to connect all the dots. So there's a little bit more here that adds just a little bit more magic to this. If you're really in the habit and get used to asking your guides for guidance and listening, I'm sitting there reading about gargoyles, having this big awareness now, understanding why I was shown lemons days before this unfolded, knowing this was going to unfold just like this, feeling like the little puppet on the string. And the spirits said to me, now go reread that email you got from that guy named Michael 2 weeks ago. Okay. So there's this fellow named Michael. I love the name Michael, like Archangel Michael, who came to one of my classes and said, I have a gift for you, and handed me this notebook that he spent 4 years putting together of channeled material based on my channeled material. He said, I'm not here for the class. You're just supposed to have this. And it's a beautiful treasury of spiritual material. But 2 weeks earlier, he emailed me a short email with a PS for me and a message from my mother in spirit. I remember thinking, why does this guy have a message for me from my mother? And I read it, and it didn't mean anything to me at the time. One line was written in capital letters. It held no meaning whatsoever. So I just filed it away, printed it out, filed it with his notebook, and thanked him for the message from my mother. Well, here I am in the middle of the night, and I hear, go reread it now. And I suddenly knew, couldn't remember what was in that postscript, but knew it was going to bring all of this together. So I got to find it for you here. All right. He must have heard me, Michael, at some point telling everybody that my mother just didn't get all this work that I do. She really never did. And when she passed, I had a shared death experience and got to visit her across the veil. And she seemed to me to be in a kind of coma state across the veil, a recovery state. Like she didn't quite understand where she was, couldn't accept that she had passed. So she was still resting just like she had been in hospice across the veil. Well, here's Michael sending me this message in the postscript. This dear sweet soul, your mother, was so into her performance as your mother, she was not ready to exit the stage. She released the handbrake and rolled into the role where she got to say exactly what she thought. At times, she's laughing at her own performance as a soul. And he wrote in all caps, oh, look, oh, the look on your face, your mother refrains. Oh, the look on your face as you realize your mother was playing a role. This whole thing was all about my mother's look that wounded me from Lord, age 2, right? Put me into a state of terror, but I pushed it down because it had nowhere to go. And then along comes Ty, and at the soul level, he's pushing my buttons, triggering me with the look on his face. And yet, don't we blame others for our own discomfort? Well, like I said, once you bring in the light, it can't hurt you anymore. So Ty can talk about that so-called taboo topic. He can make whatever look he wants, and there's no button to push anymore. Lynette was at the house because we had just gotten back from Argentina, and I was sharing this discovery with her. And she made a comment. She didn't realize what we had discussed, what had happened earlier. And she said, boy, don't you see how we sometimes think people are old souls and young souls, that people don't get things spiritually, but there's no such thing as old souls and young souls. We're all playing roles. My mother, I thought here she's not this advanced soul because she couldn't understand any of these things. But here's this guy saying she was just playing a role to get you to this teaching, to this understanding. And Lynette said, you could just meet some asshole junkie on the street and he's an evolved spirit. And I said, what did you just say? There's that same word again. You know, I have answered people's questions in the past. Are we young souls or old souls? And it's like calling things evil spirits and worms. They're stories that we tell to make sense of the fact that some people appear to not know who we are when we're all playing roles. And I know that Ty and I are meant to be together, and whatever buttons we push in each other, at the soul level, it's all being orchestrated. Lynette, I said I was going to bring you on because you had such wisdom to share that morning at the table when we were talking about how we can all be assholes at times, to bring a little bit of levity into this whole thing. Is there anything in your wisdom you could add to this discussion? No, unmute yourself. You got to say something. Alleviate things a little here. You're still muted, honey.
Okay. So I don't know that I have any wisdom. I do want to say I have no actual judgment about junkies, which is not usually a term that I use. I remember that morning, it was actually before you went to Argentina. It was the day that you guys were leaving.
That's
that
right.
you were having the story. But what I remember telling Ty was one of my total freak out episodes, completely out of character. I jumped up in the middle of the night, went to the kitchen, started slamming things around like a lunatic, making this racket and just pow, pow, pow. And then I ran out the front door sobbing in the 3 a.m. and went and sat under a streetlight, sobbing. And my sweet husband, who has no idea what's happening to me, comes out, just, are you okay? And I recognize now in retrospect, I mean, the work that I used to do was so traumatic and difficult. I had a dead child that day on my assigned cases. There was all this pent up energy. I had the attachment of sadness and grief and sorrow and a sense of helplessness. And it all came out in a complete, out of nowhere, jumped up at 3 a.m. in the morning, freak out episode. And what I think is so wonderful about what you shared tonight, Suzanne, is we can all have these. There is no level of awakening or spiritual attainment that we're ever going to be immune from this stuff. Of course, we handle it better. The more we know, the more we grow, but it can still get us, and it's funny now to think about it. And everything like this is an opportunity for growth and expansion, just like you have shared with us tonight, which is, I mean, wow, what an intricate, wild experience, and the different players. And I just love it. I love it because that's what we're here for. We're actually here for the freak out episodes. We had bliss before we came, so that's my wisdom.
She just said, we're here for some of the freak out episodes. Had bliss before we came. Yet we teach each other not to feel the darkness.
Mhm.
My sister tells me that I had bruises on me from my mother spanking me. I have blocked that out. And yet you can understand how one look at my mother coming at me, a woman that didn't really understand unconditional love because she never had it, could terrorize me. As little children, we don't have these tools. We don't feel safe. I didn't feel safe. So what do? We find ways to cope with us. Every one of us is walking wounded because we grow up among other people playing our roles here. So that's why I just thought it was important to share this with all of you, because you might look at me and think, oh, she's a spiritual teacher, she's got her act together. And as you can see, I became that crazy person. And Lynette described her crazy person moments. I just think about the people that don't have these tools. And I wanted you all to have tools so that we don't make decisions that hurt ourselves and hurt others. Yes, we still need to feel it, but we can make wiser choices and be aware of what's happening at the time and say, you're right, this isn't me. It's all me, but it's not the bigger self, the greater self. So my goal is for all of us to come to know this place within us, that still point, and be able to access guidance. I mean, when I look back and connect all these dots, this was a convoluted story. I hope you all stayed with me. But you can see how it was orchestrated from the time the lemons showed up and the vulnerability. They're like, we're finally going to have a chance to knock her down to the point where she can't deny. We're going to get at the most basic childhood wound that's been festering her entire life and heal it. Wow. I'm just really happy this has a happy ending, and I have a very forgiving husband. Yeah. I love you, sweetheart. So in all of this, if you would like to take a look at something in you that might be you willing to heal without becoming a crazy person, it would be my honor to let my guides lead you in a little meditation to at least look at that. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to lead where it's going to go, but yeah, okay, we will let them take care of that. So why don't you just put down anything that you're holding on to right now and give this your full attention, because it's pretty important stuff. I know you signed in this evening for a reason, all right? So our intention is to identify, if you think of that yin yang symbol, a little patch of darkness within the lightness that is you. There will always be something, because that's the dance, but something really dense that may be attracting to you energy that's just not serving you now. So let's all just close our eyes for a moment. And let's take a really nice, relaxing vagus nerve breath. I'll guide you to breathe in now through your nose to the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale through the mouth, lightly pursed lips to 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's do that again now. Probably feeling a little tension from this discussion. So let's just release any fears, any doubts, any tensions as we take another really relaxing, cleansing breath. And I'm asking for everyone's spirit guides and angels to stand beside you as we do this exercise and wrap their energetic wings around you like a beautiful warm blanket as you release any tension that you're feeling. And knowing that you are always safe and protected as the light, and knowing that our group energy today is so imbued with the light that healing will take place. Let's take one more beautiful, relaxing breath. and just rest as that light. Picture a shaft of white light that comes down from above and flows all the way into the center of the earth. As you breathe in now, pull up earth energies just to charge up your physical body, and breathe down from above celestial energies from the soul level, bringing the two together in perfect balance. With your awareness at the level of the heart, bring to mind something you're super grateful for right now, just to bring your whole being into a beautiful state of coherence. Gratitude gets you there quickly. What are you grateful for? Feel that in the heart area and fill your entire energy field with this beautiful energy of light, acceptance, love, compassion. We call in the angels now to surround us and radiate us with the remembrance. We are souls who came here to play roles for the experience of light and dark. And throughout our lives, we have interacted with others also playing their roles. But at this time in our lives, there may be dense pockets of energy that are just waiting to be released, but sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And so we're asking for a spirit guide with our greatest good in mind to come be with us now and to show us through imagery what is in us that is ready to be released. I would like you to metaphorically hold out your hand. You don't have to physically do it, but it doesn't matter. Hold out your hand and ask your guide to put in your hand a symbolic reference to something that will help you to know what needs to be released in you. Put it there now. In that brief moment's pause, that's all that's necessary for one image to appear in your mind's eye. Whatever it was, trust that it will lead to the awareness, the unraveling of a story that is part of your life story, this role you're playing here. It's not an enemy. It is something that is within you that is to be valued for what it has to teach you. Holding on to that image, now ask your guide, what meaning does this have for me? And listen. How would your life change if you were able to release this now? Are you willing to be free of an issue you've carried around with you? Perhaps you were aware of it, perhaps not. Call in angels now to help free you of this energy, to show you what lessons it has served you until now with bringing into your life. Knowing that you can always help yourself. There are other healers who may help you with deeper levels of this, but for now, able to help yourself with the help of your guides. Use your hands and physically remove this ball of dense energy and hold it out in front of you and hold it up as an offering to the light, bringing to light that which was dark, but having no fear, for you are using your sovereignty to say, I acknowledge that at the soul level, I am whole and complete. This part of my role no longer serves me. I return it now to the light. And visualize a shaft of light coming down like a laser beam and transmuting that energy into sparkling bits that simply dissolve like fireflies. And now in that shaft of white light in which you are sitting, pull in divine light from above to fill in the space vacated by that energy you've been carrying around, which no longer serves you. Thank your guides for the healing that's taken place and ask to be shown in the coming days that healing has taken place by new and unexpected positive reactions to things that might have triggered you in the past, by feelings of peace and balance and freedom, by asserting your sovereignty. In awareness and with validation from above that true healing has taken place just in the right way for you right now, in response to your being willing to help heal yourself with the help of higher beings. Send a wave of gratitude to the universe. Take a nice deep breath and come back into your body. Okay. Wow. I hope that was helpful for you. Sometimes those things can be very surprising. Like I say, you don't know what you don't know. I'm going to bring up two final slides that come from my Heart Gifts presentation. The message from Wolf. Isn't it interesting that that came up earlier with Charlie's passing? Let me pull it up here. Why is the wolf such a good symbol for all of this? Wolves represent the spirit of freedom. They come when we most need guidance in our lives. In my book, Wolf's Message, we learned that balance and freedom is part of the journey for all of us. It's why the yin yang symbol was so important in that story, and why it's come up in all of this. This whole play, that this drama that we're involved in, is all about finding balance in our lives, not rejecting the darkness. I spent a whole lifetime being told you're not allowed to feel negative feelings, you're not allowed to cry, you're not allowed to be angry, and I was not allowed then to be whole, to be able to express your feelings, to not be so frightened by your feelings. That is freedom right there. So in this final slide, an explanation of the yin yang symbol. Within the circle, we see the light and the dark, forever in opposition, but also forever in harmony. That symbol represents perfect balance. This is really huge. The two opposites are not at war, but in harmony. I hope that this whole story that I shared with you this evening has helped you feel a little bit more in tune with your soul. I certainly showed a little bit of my human side, but I'm ever so grateful to the soul that is connecting with all of your souls tonight. We're just going to end a little early tonight. I don't feel that it's appropriate to answer any questions and go off on a tangent. I'd like you to all to sit with what this may have stirred up in you, and instead of pushing it away, have the courage that comes from the soul to say, I'd like to look at this, and I'd like to look at moments when I thought I had an attachment and what I was actually magnetizing to myself so that it could be freed and healed. Right? That's my greatest wish for all of you. So thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you to my team. Thank you for Ty for the role you've played in all of this. And I just love you all very much. And we'll see you here next time. Good night, everybody.